this time, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Mr. Jeff Pence. Jeff is a 7th grade English language arts teacher at Dean Rusk Middle School in Cherokee County, Georgia. And as an early adopter of technology, he has joined us here today to share his knowledge and insight on how today's teachers can effectively teach writing through the use of digital technology. So thank you for joining us, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
All right. Okay, well, my name is Jeff Pence. Like she said, I teach 7th grade language arts. 7th grade is a wonderful age. The students all really think they have a handle on everything and understand everything. And we all know that they are not in quite as much control as they might think they are. I'm in Cherokee County, Georgia, which is just northwest of Atlanta, and in one of the larger school districts in Georgia. The school I'm at is Dean Rusk Middle School, and it's named after the Secretary of State who was under Johnson and also Nixon, who was very well known for some of his little quips through time. One of the most favorite was when he let the French know that the American soldiers were there for a reason, and he fairly well put Charles de Gaulle in his place back when. Anyone who can help the French do that is one of my friends. But that's the namesake of our school. I am a father and a husband. I have 3 children. Sam graduated last year. Hannah wants to graduate last year. She's got another year and a half. And Brandon is in 1st grade. Brandon is our joy. We adopted Brandon, so eyes wide open on that one. But he is in 1st grade, so here we are starting over. You can see from my little tag trail there that I've lived all over the place and done a lot of things. This is all about the effective teaching of writing. Any tools that I have at my access, if it doesn't help me to effectively teach, then it's a waste. And I kind of joke around at times about the subtitle being a practical and productive introduction to the use and exploitation of various technologies for student achievement. Some of the things I use in my classroom aren't really used the way they were designed to be used. But, you know something, that's what it's all about, is using what we can, how we can, to make sure that we get success in our students. There is a question we would like to pose to you right up front, and it's kind of a where do you sit type question. So, Jackie, are you going to run that for us?
I sure will.
Okay. And we'll let that come up and do it. It's kind of a where do you see yourself as technology moves in. Let's see if I can.
And we have our attendees responding at this point. It looks like 60% have voted. So we'll give them another 20, 25 seconds, Jeff.
All right.
Ooh, 100% of people have now voted. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll so we can check out the results.
No, I'm not used to that. I'm teaching 7th grade. I'm used to having to beg people to get their answers in. All right, so digital natives, kind of low. Digital immigrants, which is where a lot of us find ourselves. I'm glad to see that we don't have many bumps on the information highway. That's good. As adults in the classroom, we find ourselves sitting with students who many times know more than we do, and are able to get along with and use things sometimes better than we can. But no matter where we find ourselves, we definitely have students who are digital natives. They are proficient users of all the technology. They're fast learners if they're not. Now, we must embrace technology or we're going to get left behind. And that's kind of where I go with this whole technology bit in writing. Because, as I said before, without it, we're in trouble. The need we have in the classroom with or without technology. We have to have effective monitoring in the classroom. We have to be able to monitor what's going on with the students all the time. What we teach has to be standards-based. We need to have consistent evaluation, and we must have timely feedback. These are requirements that I've had for years, long before I was deep into technology. Another question I'd like to go ahead and pose now. What type, or do your students use word processing, writing programs now beyond just simple word processors? And I'd like to see what our answers are to that one so that we can kind of move in that direction also and be thinking a lot about that. So do your students currently use electronic tools in your classroom? And this is beyond just word processing, like Microsoft Word or others like that. So let's see.
So I've launched the poll test. It looks like 89% of people have voted so far. Maybe we could give another 10 seconds.
This is one of those things where we find ourselves sometimes at the mercy of the people with the purse strings.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. So 75% of people said yes, they do have technology, and 25% said no, Jeff.
Okay, well, that's good. That's very good. Now, looking at how we do what we do using technology, there's a problem going on right now all across. If the only way to learn how to write is to write, then how do we increase student performance and productivity without sacrificing accuracy and thoroughness? Well, I can have my students write a lot of essays, but the accuracy and thoroughness is throwing that out the window. All of a sudden, I'm going to be missing all kinds of things because I'm going to be in a hurry, or it's going to take me so long to get the papers back to the students that they're not going to have any clue what they wrote the first time, and they're going to think they're looking at something totally new that someone else wrote because they can't remember what they had for dinner last night. Well, the solution, we use everything at our disposal to enhance the writing process, and that includes technology. And with that technology, we get to increase productivity in the classroom. So here's another question for you. How many essays did your students complete last school year? From beginning to end, last school year, essays from beginning to end, all the way through the process. Go ahead and select where you fall in those numbers. And this always amazes me how people tend to fall right within the same area typically. Okay, so we have a few more than 10. That's good. The biggest chunk is 4 to 7. Let me just share with you what happened in my classroom last year, just to give you an idea of what happens in this little town in Georgia, north of Atlanta, with some 7th grade students. This past school year, the 11-12 school year, my students, number of writing students that I teach each day is 130. That was 130. This was last year. I'm using present, past tense. It was last year. I taught 130 students each day. Well, those students completed essays and summaries last year, beginning to end. They each completed 29 essays or summaries. Well, each one of those essays or summaries was turned in for grading, and it was evaluated, scored, and given back to the student an average of 6 times. So 130, 29, 6. So the number of drafts that got evaluated and returned to the students in my classroom with specific feedback and absolute consistency, well, you can do the math. Here we go. Have mercy. Over 22,000 drafts got graded in my classroom last year. Well, how in the world? Because we all know, how in the world do you increase quantity without sacrificing the quality of the grading. And your pivot point has to be that accurate, consistent, and timely feedback. As long as we keep it balanced between quantity and quality, as long as we keep it balanced on accurate, consistent, and timely feedback, then things work. And without that, things fall apart. We sacrifice quantity for quality, or we sacrifice quality for quantity. I know that if I spend about 10 minutes on each essay, with that many essays that my students turned in to have graded last year, it would have taken a very long time. Even looking at it in hours and days, it still adds up. That's 24/7 grading 157 days straight, nonstop. The reality, we have about 2 hours a day that we can grade, total. So if I did spend 2 hours a day grading, it would take a little over 5 years to grade that many assessments, to grade that many papers. So what's going on here? How does this work? Well, it's really simple. Tools. By using the right tools to enhance the students' writing experience and the information they receive back in the process, then we're able to push them along. And the way these students are digital natives, they are driven. Now, my classroom is a technological playground, and very much by design. It's not all the latest and greatest, but there are bells and whistles and clicks and things all over the place, and the students come in, and they're all over the place. And I was joking just yesterday with my principal, and I said, you know, the students are going to be distracted, so I'm going to provide the distraction that is still in line with where I'm wanting the students to go as a whole, just so we stay where we're supposed to be. So with all of this stuff that I use in my classroom, the bottom line goal is to help students improve in their writing. Now, I also use a lot of online resources. I don't know if you've used these before, but if you've ever used Wordle, it is a wonderful resource to help students look at word usage. It creates a tagline. I'll show it to you in just a few minutes. But most of these in the center down through here create those word clouds. Socratic is a great response type clicker, but it's an online, or it's based on the student devices. So no matter what they have in their hand, that's going to help them do that. The FreeMind SourceForge.net on the top is sort of a pre-writing tool, like the, there it went, right out of my head. It's mind mapping is what it comes down to. The old inspiration program that the kids use in the lower grades with the pictures, and they line them up and do their things like that. So there are a lot of online tools that we can use that are free. The majority of these are free. But there are some other things that are subscription-based. That one thing that I use is WriteToLearn. Now, WriteToLearn is this magical tool that I use in my classroom, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So what does my classroom look like in a week? Well, on Monday, we have grammar lessons. I teach grammar, nouns, verbs, all the modifiers, all the clauses, all the phrases. We still do that. We still use these magical things called textbooks. They are still useful. We still use workbooks. I am constantly using my smartboard and the Quizdums to chat with the students to make sure they're understanding what's going on. And if they're not, you'll see on Tuesday we do some reteaching. Now, just for a little exercise, for things like pronouns. How do you keep things excited with pronouns, exciting in the classroom? Well, you tell the students, you have a chance right now to count how many pronouns you see. So you better just go ahead and be ready, because I'm going the wrong direction. There we go. Back in there. Come on. This presentation that I'm using is called Prezi, and I have my mouse in the wrong place. Here we go. Now count pronouns. Are you catching all the pronouns? You can get these off YouTube. They're free. There's some wonderful things that you can grab. I found that with the words in it and went absolutely crazy to use it in my classroom, having the students count how many pronouns. And I've never really gone back to count to find out, because it goes too fast. But anyway, Tuesday we come in and I reteach grammar from Monday. The students who don't understand get more in-depth instruction and work with them a little more closely. Those students who do understand it get enrichment activities that move on into other things and go in that direction. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, depending on what we're doing in class that week, either essays or summaries, we get to two different directions. So if, for instance, on an essay week, the students come in on Wednesday and I provide them with a writing prompt, and they plan and draft by hand. It's not all on the computer. The fact is, in Georgia, where I teach, the 8th grade writing test these students must pass next year is a handwritten test. It is not on a computer. So what I do is I teach my students how to write a great essay by hand. So all the writing in my class is done by hand before it's put into the computer for assessment. Now also, each of the tests in the classroom, I tell the students it has to be 54 lines of text. And that is because in the 8th grade writing test booklet, there are 54 lines for them to write an essay. So they need to be able to write a great essay in that amount of space that develops their topic and finishes before they get to that 54th line. So I kind of joke and tell them it's like the Price is Right. You have to get as close as you can without going over. But each essay is 54 lines long. Now on white ruled paper, that's a front and a back. That's it. That's not a long essay, unless you're a 7th grader. It seems like it's an eternity. But that's not a huge essay, as we all know. Now, on Thursday, the students come in. They have their draft completely written by hand. They type it into the WriteToLearn program. They revise it. They edit. They collaborate with each other. They collaborate with me. And they're provided with 3 feedback submissions in the WriteToLearn program. So they can turn it in and get it back graded, which, by the way, happens in about 2 seconds. All the classroom, all at once, can hit the button at the same time, and every one of them has it back in 2 seconds, ready to go. It's amazing to me how this thing works the way it does. Friday on essay week, they get an additional 3 feedbacks. Now, the trick is, Thursday, they all take their 3 feedbacks, but they have to take at least 1. Because Thursday, before I go home, I go in and turn it off. So they can't work on it at home. Because I don't want to know how well Mama can write an essay tonight or Big Brother can write an essay tonight. The next day they come into class on Friday, I give them additional feedbacks so that they can work on it. So at home the night before, they can look at it and they can write down notes of things they want to do to it. They can't work on it at home. Their final submission is made in WriteToLearn on Friday in class, and then they publish. They take the text out of WriteToLearn over into another project, into a Microsoft Word, Publisher, PowerPoint, somewhere, and they create a document or something from that they will be publishing to send. This past week, my students wrote me a letter. Well, they had to take it and they had to format it like a letter, put it in an envelope, and address it to me. So everything had to be done all the way through for them to finish that assignment and to have it done well. Now, the great thing was I got to open letters and read through letters and look at how they laid out their letter, and I didn't have to worry about the commas because that grade had already been taken care of for me. So it was great being able to read their letters with an eye for how is this kid as a writer? What can I do to help this kid write better? So that kind of thing. Now, back to Wednesday on summary writing weeks. The summary writing section of this is phenomenal. I provide them a writing prompt again, but this time it's not just a prompt. It is actually an excerpt from a textbook that is on level, grade level, with the students, and it matches, I found the prompts that match the standards that are being taught in those classes this week, for instance. So the students read an article out of a textbook, and they start taking notes on that. Then on Thursday, they continue to read, take notes, then they type up their notes, and they have to type a summary of that original. And on Friday, there again, they come in, They get their additional 3, they finish it up in WriteToLearn, and then they publish it, which is them formatting it in their way to turn it into their social studies or their science teacher, or to place it into their notebook for those classes to help them study all what's going on in those classes. And the great thing is, I am able to give a list of topics to those teachers and tell them, when you're hitting something, make sure I know so that I can put the students in. And I will talk more about that in just a few minutes. I want you to see actually in the program how that works a little bit. Now, how do I make all this happen in a week? Well, quite honestly, I use WriteToLearn, which is why we're here. This is a great assessment tool. It's easily aligned with state writing standards. Now, it is not aligned to Georgia's writing standards. It is aligned to Idaho's writing standards. It's not aligned to California's. It is easily aligned. Basically, because the next line there, it supports the 6+1 traits of writing, the 6 traits. Everybody does 6 traits. That's what it's based on. It's also cross-curricular, so it enhances the student learning and writing. The Common Core curriculum that's out there, this is an absolutely phenomenal tool to help the science and social studies and the other subject teachers be able to teach and assess writing in their classes without them having to struggle through the grading of the grammar, because this is going to help them with that. It's going to assist them, and it is going to help change their lives a little bit, because they're all stressed about having to look for commas, and we all know that how math teachers are with commas. But anyway, there has been some media focus recently on whether computers are able to grade essays, and some of it's been positive, some of it's been negative. I've actually been interviewed by USA Today, also Education News. I was actually on NPR's Morning Edition, the radio show. They wrote it up in there. State Impact out of Ohio called and interviewed and asked me, what is going on? What is it about computers grading essays that makes you so comfortable with them? And all I could say was, well, let me tell you about my experience from what I know has happened in my classroom. I am not a techno guru who can explain all of the inner workings of artificial intelligence and how all the algorithms, and I don't know. But I can tell you what works and what I've seen working in my classroom. And that's what I want to do right now. Let's get real. I am actually going to flip my computer over into, and I can't see which one. There we go. Let me do this one. And flip over. Okay, then. Because that's not going to work. Let me come down here and jump up. Teacher login. There we go. And let me log in here. And this is my teacher console. So when I log in, I come into this teacher console. And I know you can see this, but there's the class scoreboard, overview, progress, the tools over here. Down here, there are PDFs with tons of information about how to do all the inner workings of all that's going on here. Frequently asked questions, can answer just about every question you could possibly have. But we're going to start over here with reports. And when I hit class scoreboard, it comes up and asks me which class. And I'm going to go to this class here that I have created, and we're going to look at one essay, how to start a hobby. And when I click on that, it gives me the class scoreboard. So as a class, these students have gotten 5 out of 6 on ideas, organization 4A, conventions 5.2, 5.0, 5.0. Okay, so when I'm looking to reteach in this class, where are they struggling? Well, their lowest was organization. So I'm going to teach organization. That's where I'm going to refocus this group next week as we go through. Now, the other under teacher tools is the overview. And when I click overview and do the same thing, same class and the same assignment, then I get individuals. I see how each one of these students scored. And I see that John's having a problem. John's word count was low. He did not write a lot. He had a good many grammar errors. Nate had a bunch of grammar errors. Well, what was it about John's essay that made it so bad? So I come over here and I click on it, and it actually shows me his essay. And I come in, and I see right off the bat that it's short, and I think, oh my goodness, there's that word again. We're not supposed to use that word. So I jump into my comments, and I come over here, and I get a Post-it note, and I drop it down here, and I type into it, use many instead of a lot, and I save it. And when I'm ready for another one, I come down, and I can drop another note, type in, keep going, and drop it in there, and close the window. Then when the student logs on, they see those little Post-it notes that I dropped in. So I look and I see that John is really struggling with his ideas and organization. He's having some grammar issues. I come down and click on grammar, and it shows me where the grammar issues are. There's that word that we don't use. He needs to work on spacing after, so that's just a typo. That's not a big deal. The wrong your. Now, when I click on these, you'll notice the little window that pops up, and it actually provides them, consider using this instead of that. I love this program because it doesn't say change this to this. It says consider. And the students are all, Mr. Kent, they told me to do this, and that's wrong. And I'm like, no, it didn't tell you to do it. It says consider. It wants you to look at it, and you have to decide, is this the right your? And so it reads through, and it tells them, here, your is the contraction you are. It means you don't. So you might need to change this. And that's one of the things I love about this. And if they forget what the prompt is, they can actually click on the purple text here, and it shows them the original prompt again. Let me think here a moment. And close that. And close that. I was trying to remember if it opened new windows or not. So that was an essay. Let's look at a summary. Now, in our classes this year, they started out and they started looking at the early religions. And so they wrote an essay on Islam, the beginnings of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And this is one of the summaries on Islam. And in the summary, it actually had 3 different sections. Section 1, 2, and 3. Now, if I click on Section 1, it tells me, well, it tells me the name of it. That doesn't help me a lot. If I click on the student's name, does it come over here? And let me see if it will. There we go. This is what the students read to write their essay. Also, you'll notice up on the top a little window that pops up. If I click this, it will actually so it will actually read to them the passage. So if there are students who need that help, it also has a translator. So the word religion, we can translate it into Spanish, I believe is what it translates into specifically. It has a dictionary, and it also has a picture dictionary that will pull up a picture to help the students understand what is going on, what that word means. Also, as it reads along, there are some words that are underlined. They are actually links that bring up further explanation from it as well. And it also will read to the students. I don't know if you saw, but on the bottom there is also a Spanish translation that it will bring up and read to the students as well. Now, when the students are logged in to theirs writing, it will actually read their own words back to them as well. So it will help them to edit and revise where they can hear it being read back to them in that process. Okay, let me see, where were we? We were on teacher tools. Obviously, the setup of classes. This is where you come in and you can set up the who's in which class, and you can name all your classes and all that, create new classes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Choosing assignments. You choose assignments for each class individually, and when you come in to select activities, and I'm just going to show you here, I'm going to click all, and all, and hit find. And depending on the, there we go. Now, I'm just going to scroll. And I want you to notice the little elevator over here on the side as it slides down, the sheer number of prompts and summaries that are in here to be written on. It's still scrolling. It's about halfway, not even halfway down yet, and I'm still scrolling. There's a phenomenal amount of information in here. Now, last year, my science teacher wanted the students to write something on biomes. And I thought, well, I'm sure there's something in there. And it dawned on me that when I hit all in all and bring this up like this, in Internet Explorer, I can go up and do the find on this page and come up and search for biomes. And lo and behold, there it is down there in the 9th through 12th grade prompts for them to read and write. And she and I discussed it, and it's, okay, this may be a little above their reading level, but the information's there. So we had them write on it. And they did very well. It's surprising. So you can actually go in and search this list for keywords, whatnot, to find assignments to give to the students as they work through there. Okay. Oh, let me see what else. Let's see. Now, let's go on as a student. Because as a teacher, you know, you've got all that control, but this is where the rubber hits the road. I have to stop talking when I type, or I'll start typing what I'm saying. So this is Edgar Allan. And Edgar Allan comes in, and he's thinking, wait a minute, I don't read too well. What does that say? So you can see where students who might be language learners, English language learners, even in the directions on the page, it provides assistance. How to start a hobby essay down here. He still has 4 tries left, doesn't have any teacher comments. He clicks on essay here, and it opens up the essay that he has written. And it shows where he is. The triangles are where the bar was on the previous submission. So the students know what has moved each time they hit submit. Down here for grammar, it says almost. There's a grammar error. The student clicks on grammar, and it comes up, and it shows them exactly where the grammar problem is. What it does not do is tell them what to fix or how to fix it. Recovering is when a fencer pulls his or her arm back at the same time as they pull their leg back. Comma may be missing before conjunction separating independent clause. No, it's not. How about that? We tell it to ignore. So everything it says, the student has to look and the student has to know. Then we recheck grammar, and it comes up and says, that's quick, Jimmy, that it's been checked. So we exit the grammar check and we come back out. There's another one out here that says repetition, repeated content. And this is one that students will sometimes argue with me about. What they do is move their front foot forward and then they move their back foot forward. Retreating is when they move their back foot backwards and then move their front foot. Okay, so looking at vocabulary, is that saying the same thing? Well, maybe what the student needs to do here is rewrite this into one compound complex sentence. And then it will see that it's the follow-through of a fault. So what it does is it prompts the student in specific areas and prompts me where this student needs to work on things and to help in that respect. When the student does give feedback, they have their scoreboard here on the top, and then they scroll down the page and they have their essay with tips. And as a teacher, you can turn these on and off. Make it interesting. What are they talking about? Well, how do you do this? What's the most important part? How do you get better? So it gives them ideas to expand their essay and make it better and improve it. They can select new activity, come back out to the front. This is where they work on their summaries as well. So all of your assignments are made out here. But how do you write a good summary? Well, this is amazing to me. When the students click up here, it actually takes them in and gives them guidelines on writing a good summary. But what about my essay? What are conventions anyway? The great thing is, these on the left, anytime they hit feedback, these are links. You want to know what conventions is? You click on conventions. It takes you in, and it explains. View essay examples. This is phenomenal. This is a 6-point essay. This essay earns 6 points and ideas. What's good about it? What's bad about it? Well, what about a 4-point? What does it look like? Well, minor spelling errors, and there they are. Some internal punctuation has problems, and there they are. Grammar use, and there they are. So it will actually pinpoint what makes this a good or bad essay for the students. Now, notice this is not the essay the student wrote, because if you show the student, here's how to make your essay better, then they're going to come over here and copy it and paste it. That's not what we're about. We're about helping the students work through the process of writing. Now, also, over here, just like everywhere else, you've got your little text help. So it reads to them here as well. Or, what exactly is a window? A student from another language may ask. So they come up and they hit the dictionary or they hit the picture and it shows them this is what it is. Now, that's a simple one, obviously, but you could imagine with some of the summaries they're writing that the definitions are a little more intense, a little more involved. So as the students work through this, it's amazing to listen. And what I like to do in my classroom is I tell the students to hold off and do not take their final feedback until the end of class. So a lot of students will sit and work on their essays for an extended amount of time without taking the feedback. And then at the end of class, I'll say, okay, now. And I'll have students yelling in the classroom. Some of them are yelling at the computer saying, no, that's wrong. Some of them are yelling, look at my score, look, I can't believe I did that well. I just saw this up here, and remember, this is a new feature that is in WriteToLearn now. Students can have all of the directions on the page show up in English, Spanish, or some type of Chinese. I'm not sure if it's Mandarin or simple Mandarin, or there's a specific, someone else can help us out with that probably. But it will actually show all of the directions on the page. You'll notice the prompt and the student's writing stay in English, because that is our goal with this program, is English writing, English language arts. So as you can see, the student side of this is very intense. The students get very excited as they go through and work through the different parts of the writing process with the tools that are there for assistance. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you, and it's in the teacher side, so let me log back into the teacher side right quick. As the teacher, after I make assignments, then I can go in and change settings. This is my favorite part, because I will come into the settings, and for the students in this class, I will say for this one activity on meeting a person, I want you to have a total of 6 feedbacks. For spell checking, I can turn it off, allow them to make corrections, or give suggestions. Same thing for grammar. None, allow corrections, or give suggestions. I can turn on and off the essay writing tips, the language selection, whether it will read to them or not. Obviously, your advanced classes do not need that as much. You can also slow down the reading. If you have a group of ELL students in a class, English language learners, you can slow it down for them so that they can really understand. You can change your expected length. You can also change your passing threshold. Where do you want the students to keep going until you reach this point? Now you'll notice off to the side, to the right of where I'm clicking these, it's actually showing me how many students have made to that point. So 80% have made it to this point in conventions. So how far down would I have to go? All the way down. But once I raise the bar, less students reach that far. So I don't have many students past the 4. So this is good data for me to use as a teacher to know where do I need to spend more time in my classroom with these students to help them to advance and to work through this. Now on the summaries, there are different settings. You have the same number of attempts. The copying threshold is a wonderful thing. If they put more than 6 words in a row from the original, it flags it as copied. So they have to rearrange. They have to rewrite. You can take it all the way down to 5, you see. Each takes 15, they're going to copy and paste everything. But anyway, you see what I'm saying? The copying threshold, you set where you want that to be. If there are hints available for that writing, you can turn them on and off. Some of them have vocabulary that go along with, and they have vocabulary exercises to do before they do the reading. You can turn on and off the language. You can turn on and off, again, the text-to-speech so that the students can or cannot, your choice. Now, preferred length, 175 to 400. I shorten this down for my students because the summary, by design and by definition, is much shorter than the original. So that's not a big deal. It's not a problem. And helping them understand that they're not having to write that large bulk of writing again. They're reducing the amount of words, but trying to provide the same information. And here again, you can provide your passing threshold down here. Now, this program, nowhere does it produce a grade, a percentage grade for you to put in your grade book. How you handle and how you assess the grades out of this are totally up to you. And this is one of the things that I was speaking earlier about the media and how the media has picked up on whether computers can grade essays or not. Computers, you know, can they grade essays? Well, let me show you what I found with my students. I come in and I have students who come into me in August. And when I put them in to write an essay, and I give them multiple submissions, these students come in and they write an essay, and this student ended up with all 3s, basically, except for a 4. And this is with everything turned on, all the tools. This exact same student in February with a different prompt, with only 1 feedback and everything turned off, no spell check, no grammar check, the student came in and got solid 4s for that student. Here's another student. In August, with a lot of help. In February, with no help. Type it straight in, hit feedback, close it. This was basically a first final draft, if we could say that, with no assistance in the editing process. On the left, assistance with editing. On the right, no assistance. On the left, assistance. On the right, no assistance. Do you see what's going on here? I am seeing in my classroom a consistent growth, have mercy, a consistent growth with these students and their ability to write. And I'm seeing solid consistency across the board. And I'm talking from the struggling writers to the advanced writers, even the ones who start out advanced. They still progress. They still progress. So somebody asked me, can computers really grade essays? Truth of the matter, no. But from my experience, I know that the right combination of software and hardware is capable of providing accurate, timely, and consistent feedback that can help the teacher assess and assign accurate grades to essays. So the teacher grades essays. Technology can help by providing that, again, accurate, consistent, and timely feedback. That's what it's all about. And that's what happens in my classroom. And I see consistently students excel in writing, whether they've struggled before or not. And it's fun to watch these students get excited about writing. And what still baffles me is how the boys in my classroom love to write. And they see it as a competition with the computer and with themselves and with each other to become better writers and to watch those bars go up. And just that one little bar moving will motivate that boy to write. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing to watch what goes on. I've been rattling off, and I'm sure there are questions that have come all over the place. So if anyone would like, I'm not sure how we're going to do this part, so I guess I'm open for any kind of question or whatever.
Thanks, Jeff, for sharing so much of what goes on inside of your classroom and how your students have been extremely successful. At this time, I would like to invite anyone on the call to openly ask questions. You can go ahead and press #6, or to go ahead and type them in the question or chat box on the control panel. Jeff, we do have a question that has already come up, and the question is, how does this affect ELL students?
Say that again. I'll get that out a little bit.
Sure. How does this affect our students who are English language learners?
What I have seen in my classroom, and I'm just going to have to tell you about one of them. I had a young man who had moved to the States. He was adopted out of an orphanage in Russia. And I think he was in 5th grade when he was adopted. He came into my room in 7th grade. You would think that he'd lived here all of his life the way he spoke, because he could speak English, and he could speak clearly, and you could really understand him. But when it came to writing, he struggled. And in some of our talking, we realized that, well, his alphabet was totally different because he was used to the Cyrillic alphabet, so that threw him off. And what I did in my classroom with WriteToLearn is, with the read back to the students feature, putting headphones on this boy, oh my goodness, you would have thought the world opened up. The first day he put on the headphones and typed some and highlighted it and had it read back to him, he sat straight up in his chair, leaned down, and went to typing, and didn't stop, and turned out some wonderful essays. Now, granted, sometimes I had to really overlook the spelling, but, you know, spelling will come. He had ideas. He just couldn't get them. He struggled. And having that one major feature of it being able to read back to him what he had written so that he could hear it coming back, because spoken English he did well, but it was the writing that he struggled with. And this gave that young man the ability to excel. And he passed the 8th grade writing test. So, wahoo.
That's amazing, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that story. We have another question and comment from an attendee. In their school, students do not have daily access to word processing tools. What recommendation do you have?
Oh boy. If their school does the BYOT, BYLD, where the students are able to use their own technology, that actually works as well. We're doing that as a pilot at my school this year, and I have students with Androids and iPhones they bring from home. Some of them don't even have cell service, but they turn on airplane mode and turn on Wi-Fi, and it works. And they're able to use WriteToLearn on those small, even the iPod Touch. They're able to use WriteToLearn. So if they have a browser, it will work. Now, also, as I said earlier, the majority of the writing that's done in my class is done by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So if I only had access to computers, say, once a week or once every other week, or if I had to rotate and each classroom could only get into computers one day a week, then I could see where you could stagger your instruction so that the students reach that, sit down at a computer and type on different days for each class. So you'd have to be flexible. You have to be creative with it. Also, some of them may have computers at home, and they may need to bring it typed on a flash drive. So it's ready to plug in, paste, work on a little bit, stand up, walk away. The next student sits down, and they work on theirs. So that you just have to maximize accessibility is what it comes down to.
So there's some great recommendations.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
That's okay.
We
What
had
I was going to say is having in the community older technology that people have sitting in their closets, a lot of that works great for word processing. So if they could donate, I mean, so, you know, there are a million different directions you could go with that.
Very creative. There was a question here about WriteToLearn. Is it used in your entire district or only at your school? Can you clarify there, Jeff?
Yes. Yes. In my school, and in the middle schools in my county, grades 6, 7, and 8, WriteToLearn was part of a textbook adoption that we did a few years ago, so we still have it going for a few years. The county has actually purchased WriteToLearn to be used in 4th and 5th grade, working up to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So right now in my district, we're only from 4th grade through 8th grade at the moment.
Okay. Well, I think that we'll do it for the number of questions that we have for you. I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, especially our presenter, Mr. Jeff Pence. Thank you, Jeff. We certainly hope you have found this to be an enjoyable and informative session. And if you would like to learn more about WriteToLearn and Pearson's commitment to meeting Common Core standards and writing, we absolutely invite you to contact our account executive, Jeanette Bougeron, or go ahead and visit us online at WriteToLearn.net. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.